Okay, I'm sorry. Can everyone hear me? Show of hands. Sorry, I know that was probably a little bit awkward for a lot of us. The stage manager thought I hadn't started my presentation yet. Come on, you can go. You can present. Can everyone hear me okay now, though? Perfect. Well, anyway, I kind of wanted to make the point there that we've all deeply integrated technology into our consciousness, whether we want to realize it or not. But let me introduce myself again for real. My name is Emily Rose. I go by NexiLove on Twitter. And I'm a software engineer at a company called Particle.io, formerly known as Spark.io. Has anyone heard of us, by chance? Yes, at least a couple. So 2 of you that know about my company, like, totally going to be into this talk. The rest of you, maybe not. But before we get into it, here's 5 fun facts for free about me. My preferred pronouns are plural, they. I'm an artist masquerading as a developer, and I'm an IoT and ubiquitous computing enthusiast. Does anyone know what that means? Again, one of us. 2 of us, perfect. All right, I'm not completely alone. I'm also one of the nicest people that you will ever meet, and I was born in Portland, Oregon, which probably explains a lot. So I'm here to talk to you about something very important. Can anyone guess what that is? Shout it out. What do you think I might be here to talk to you about? The future. That is very true. Anything more specific? Cybernetics. The Internet of Things. All of these things are very perceptive guesses. But I mean, I guess when it comes down to it, what I'm here to talk to you about is the Internet itself. Well, actually, the Internet going forward. The Internet going forward. And by the way, someone named this talk for me. I don't even know who it was. So I decided to take some liberties and also skip through a couple slides. So yeah, I'm not really sure if this is going to go over well, but I would love real-time feedback from all of you. So if something comes across your mind, just feel free to shout it out. I won't be offended. There will be a microphone going around. So if you have something you want to say or a question you want to ask, there will be a gentleman named Mike with a mic available to bring one to you. So that's kind of cool. But anyway, so I guess before I get too deep into this talk, even though I'm already almost 5 minutes in, what I want you to get out of this talk is kind of, I want you to think of it as a sort of a cheerleading effort in the form of a bizarre, non-technical talk about the hypothetical future of the Internet. Does that sound cool? So we're at forward.js, and I guess the first question I want to ask is, what is going forward? What is going forward on the Internet? Before we can talk about it, we need to make sure we all agree on what that really means. So does anyone want to throw out any ideas? I'm sure there have been a lot of ideas thrown around already. What's something that you feel is a big part of moving the Internet forward? Anyone have any suggestions? Is it like, webhooks? Oh, web component. That sounds interesting. I don't know much about it. But I do know that when I talk to people about this, I hear people say a lot of things like, the whole Moore's Law thing, like, faster processors and more RAM or faster networks, or maybe higher resolution displays are going to help us, or virtual reality headsets. I don't know. Show of hands, who thinks that virtual reality is going to be one of the next big things? Okay, cool. That's good to know. Maybe like a dozen of you or so. Interesting. Okay. Did you have a question? Yes. I want to talk to you later. All right. So is it virtualization? Is it containerization? Is it scaling horizontally? Or new frameworks? Are we moving the Internet forward by improving our resiliency or optimizing for developer productivity so we can iterate quickly or something like that? How many of us are using Docker in production? Is that moving the Internet forward? Maybe? Or I don't know, what else do we use? Like Terraform or Chef or CoreOS? Anyone use any of that stuff? Okay, so some of us are moving the Internet forward. Maybe from like an interface perspective, like maybe we're moving the Internet forward by like 13 button mice and illuminated programmable mechanical developer keyboards, which are terrible, by the way. Don't ever buy one. But yeah, I guess that's a question too. Like, are we innovating by the way that we interact with our devices and the web? Are we pushing forward by inventing novel input methods that are either, ever increasing or diminishing in complexity? I guess that's a question I ask myself a lot. But you know, are we looking at a future where maybe the whole eyeball fingertip feedback loop is the thing of the past, and you know, EEGs have taken over, or fMRIs, or you know, whatever the new brain interface thing is? I don't know a whole lot about that either. But no, all of those things are wrong. I'm sorry, it's nothing personal, really. But all of that stuff is very exciting. But I think they're all missing the mark, from my perspective anyway. And this is a talk about moving the internet itself forward. And I think that it's way more meaningful than that. So allow me to gather my breath while I discuss some, in my opinion, breathtaking facts. In quotes, facts in quotes, because they're internet facts and we all know how reliable those are. So in 2013, it was estimated that 51% of internet traffic was non-human. Does anyone know what that means, non-human traffic? Shout at me. Pretty much, yeah. Like the SEO industry has like an acronym for that. It's called NHT, non-human traffic, and it can be, you know, like a Google crawler, or it could be some, you know, exploit script. You know, somebody's got like Metasploit running and thinks they're lead or something. It could be scrapers. It could be, you know, a sensor array. Like a sensor array could be contributing to that non-human data that's outputting meaningful data. Maybe someone's listening to it. We don't know. And in 2014, that number jumped up by a solid 10%. So in 1 year, an additional 10% of the total traffic of the internet was attributed to non-humans. So if we do just a real quick, you know, super scientific linear extrapolation, we get a graph that looks like this. Extremely scientific. You can tell because this axis is not labeled. But it shows us very clearly that by the year 2018, non-human traffic has grown to the point where it accounts for 101% of the total internet traffic, which seems pretty remarkable to me. But that's just considering linear growth, right? Like, what about the exponential growth that we all know to expect? What would that graph look like? Can anyone imagine what that graph would look like? No? That's okay, because I drew it, actually. It looks like this. And it turns out that it's super impressive. I mean, look at that. 9,000% up at the top. This isn't real data. I'm not a data scientist. I'm not that good with Python, but I can make pretty graphs in Keynote, which is almost the same, I think. But so basically, what I got out of that, as our chart showed us, right? As our chart shows us, by 2020, an estimated over 9,000% of the total internet traffic will be non-human in origin. So, I mean, that's mind-blowing to me. I don't know about the rest of you. But honestly, the real figures are way more impressive than bogus trends, right? Like, there's not really enough publicly reliable information out there that I can, you know, use to like build an actual graph that would have any meaningful trend at all. But in all seriousness, 50 billion devices are going to be online by 2020. How many people? Show of hands. How many people believe me? 50 billion. At least. Well, would you believe Cisco? Because Cisco's the company that said that. They're the ones that are estimating that 50 billion devices will be online by 2020. So we know the data is flowing, and we know that it's going to continue to flow in this exponential graph, right? Because Keynote lets me make graphs I can put any data I want in there, and it clearly shows, you know, a trend. But where is the data coming from? I guess maybe that's you know, the next subject that we should really talk about. Like, where is this influx of data going to come from? Any ideas? Is Mike around anywhere? Like, there you are. Anyone have like a question they want to throw out here? Like, or I'm sorry, an answer? Like, where is all this new data going to come from? I think it's an interesting question. No? I think it's an interesting. This gentleman over here would like to posit a response. That's what he's here for. I mean, his name's Mike. Like,
It'll come from a new cluster of machines that are bound to watching us and perceiving us and trying to make intelligent decisions about us. It'll come from an artificial intelligence that tries to interface with our own intelligence.
Perfect. Exactly. I mean, that's exactly what I envision when I am, maybe staying up a little bit too late, sleep deprived, and thinking of the future. But I mean, in all reality, like, that data is literally coming from everywhere. Places as creative as what you mentioned, and also places as mundane as, like, the corner store down the street. And it's literally more of everywhere every single day. Every single day, more sensors are collecting more data in more locations, and existing systems are adding additional sensors, and it's just sensors all the way down, literally. But what does the data represent? What kind of data are we going to start emitting on the internet? What kind of data are we going to start collecting? And again, I know this is probably getting tired by now, but show of hands, anyone have any input on what you think the nature of the data will be? Quiet audience. Maybe you can guess what I'm going to say. Literally everything. Literally. Like credit card activity, transit usage, temperature readings, seismological events, gas emissions. Sorry about that, by the way. That was me. Water and air quality data, the toastedness of your toast, and data like on literally anything and everything from your daily activities, your health, your whereabouts, to the overall status of the world at large. And again, literally more of everything every single day, because like I said, every single day more novel sensors are collecting new kinds of data, new measurements, a data point that we've never had before, and entirely new types of data producing systems are being invented and brought online. Figuratively speaking, of course, not like every day, but you get the point. Like hyperbole is one of my superpowers, so please accept that. Let's move on. So we've covered, a lot about what going forward is not. We've talked a little bit, about what going forward might be, but let's get more concrete. What is going forward? Dramatic pause. I'm trying out this dramatic pause thing, so afterwards, come and see me and let me know what you thought about it. I really like the fan here, too. This is adding to the drama of the dramatic pause. What? Oh, I know. So good. All right. Give me just a minute. You should not have said that. This is... Oh, sorry. Okay. We'll bring it back in. All right. So anyway, going forward is... Say this with me now, okay? Going forward is... Come on. Embracing the fact that we are evolving the very concept of what it means to be human. So this brings me to a quote. Homo sapiens have outgrown their use. Got to make way for the Homo superior. And I think that that's a very apt quote. Because humanity has the opportunity to level up and gain new superpowers. Like maybe not in like the comic book hero sense, but we have a very real opportunity to improve our everyday quality of life, our safety, like our longevity, the distribution of information and other resources through the responsible and intelligent use of meaningful data. And also a quick note about non-human data. I believe very strongly that non-human is a misnomer in this context, because we are our data. I know it doesn't say it on the slide, but another kind of dramatic pause here, because I'd like to try to maybe blow your mind a little bit with the next slide. So please, if you will, imagine with me for a moment. Can we bring the house lights down just a little bit? This is very important to the ambiance of this exercise. Perfect. Now, this space here, this lovely white screen, is filled with the content that you've generated on every social media property that you've ever encountered. Does that look like enough space for you to kind of imagine everything that you've ever done on the internet? Right? Everything you've ever posted to Facebook, every tweet, every snarky Reddit comment, every hilarious image macro, or every selfie and blog post, all your source code. really take a minute and just kind of lay it all out there and think about it and what it means to you and kind of how it signifies what you've been through as you've developed not only software, but as a human being. And I guess the conclusion that I'm trying to help you make is that you are your data. Like literally, you are your data. The content that you create is you. And when you die, your personhood continues to exist in the form of your data, and people will post on your Facebook page. And if you're lucky, it will become memorialized. And like even today, machine learning allows us to recreate a semi-reasonable facsimile of your personality just by analyzing existing content. So what does this tell us about what it might mean to be alive in 2020 when there are 50 billion devices on the internet? So this is where I guess it starts to get maybe a little too deep for some, and if you need to leave the room, that's totally okay. But the internet is now also a conduit for the expansion of human consciousness itself. The shape of our consciousness is changing, and we are more than we used to be. We are quite literally enhancing our own senses. We're giving ourselves entirely new senses. Like, for example, I know it probably doesn't feel that way, but like push notifications when motion is detected in your home surveillance camera, or GPS-enabled applications that augment your memory based on information that's relevant to your current location. I mean, those are forms of new senses, really. So, we're creating new depths of awareness. We're quantifying our existence on entirely new levels. We have our Fitbits. We have our Last.fm accounts. We check in on Foursquare, or I guess it's Swarm now. I don't know, maybe someone can explain that to me later. But we use ride-sharing applications that provide us with detailed route reports for every ride. Our Amazon purchases, they're recorded. And many of us habitually leave reviews for products and services that we particularly enjoy or dislike. So this is all just a very long-winded way of saying we are now uniquely empowered to understand and interact with the world. And people all over the globe are taking ideas that are personally meaningful to them, and they're sharing them on the internet. And sometimes they're even turning them into actual products that become available to thousands of people. So there's people living in small urban spaces that are now growing their own food inexpensively and automagically, which is a fun word to use. And pet owners are getting flexibility and freedom with remote pet feeders, and farms can manage their resources more efficiently, and people who can't speak are gaining a voice. And please ask me about that story later if you're interested. I couldn't really fit it into this talk, but it's something that I witnessed and have been touched by. So anyway, I mean, you can make things that provide you with real value in your own life right now, today. The future is DIY, the tools exist, and it's not that hard. So, there's hundreds of resources on the internet to get started. And just I guess, a quick show of hands in terms of community resources. How many of you have heard of Hackster? Hackster.io, it's a great community-based tutorial site. How about Instructables? Okay, very popular one. The company I work for, Particle, also has a pretty active community forums. That's a shameless plug for you there. And there's also countless inexpensive options for actually building something. This is where I start talking about things like Arduinos. Has anyone heard of an Arduino? Very good. Lots of us, most of us. And things like Raspberry Pis and electric imps. Anyone heard of an electric imp? Very cool. How about a Spark Core? Yay, another shameless plug. But anyway, we've got little bits and like I said, Raspberry Pis and new boards being made on Kickstarter or made just in someone's basement every day. So anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is that you can create something useful with a cheap board over the course of a weekend, and there are hundreds of manufacturers of pretty standardized components that are like sensors and actuators that are shockingly inexpensive really often and integrate with your projects fairly easily. There's a lot of libraries for common sensors and whatnot. But anyway, you can augment your existence with technology that is as unique as you. And I forget exactly what I was trying to say with this slide, other than you now, at this point in time, can solve your own problems in a way that's accessible and convenient for you personally. Like, you don't need to wait for some company to come along and manufacture a product that happens to be geared towards you. Like, if you have the time and the inclination, you can make yourself something that has a meaningful impact in your life. Great. So how are we going forward? What are we going to do with all this technology that I'm talking about? Right, so obviously we have a lot at our disposal, but how do we go about utilizing it? What are we going to do? What's that? I mean, I think that is something that's definitely, a vital part of our continued existence, but I think it's a little out of scope for this particular talk. So when I think about how we're going to move forward within the context of the internet, stay with me on this. I'd like some more audience participation with this one, if you can tear yourselves away from your screens. So with me now, we move the internet forward. We move the internet forward by pushing it away. Pushing it away. To the periphery of our vision, so we can focus on being human. And this is where I would like to invoke the second quote of my presentation by someone who I particularly admire named Amber Case. And she said in a TED Talk, the most successful technology gets out of the way and helps us live our lives. And she says a lot of really interesting, thought-provoking stuff, so you should also follow her on Twitter if you're interested. She's a cyborg anthropologist. She's not the only one, and she actually specializes in understanding, just the way that we interact through technology and what effects it has on our society and our culture. And in my opinion, it's an extremely interesting field of study. So I know what you're probably thinking at this point is that, I'm up here trying to pitch you some, utopia of ambient computing, and you would be exactly right. That's exactly what I'm trying to do right now. But things are different now than they were 5 years ago. Hardware is inexpensive. The internet is ubiquitous, most places, and software belongs in the cloud. And when it comes to this new kind of generation of thinking about the internet and how we're going to interact with it, we're still seeing exactly how all of this is going to play out. So, I think it makes it particularly exciting for people who have a passion for building and for data and that sort of thing. But the phase of where things are at right now tells us that the implementations that we're able to create are more valuable than standards. And I think as software developers, it's really easy for us to kind of complicate the process of iterating on something that's hardware-based by taking a lot of our kind of rigid software approaches and trying to apply them a little too early in the life cycle of a development of a product or a project. So this is just chalk this up to a little bit of a tidbit for interested parties, and if you're thinking about getting involved in this stuff. But I'm kind of going off on a tangent a little bit because I kind of want to bring it back to my initial point of this entire talk, which is that you're already a cyborg. The only choice you have now is how well you're going to take advantage of your unprecedented access to information and technology. So I say, get started right now. You should start right this second. And the truth is that nobody has a clue. Like, if that's something that's keeping you from getting started, I will tell you right now, nobody has a clue what's going on. This is one of the things that makes it so exciting to me, because it's very important at this stage that smart people that really care and are passionate about what they're doing get involved and figure out how to do things right. And there are a lot of very important questions left to answer. So on that note, I would like to open up the podium to questions, or if someone would like to add to my talk. The internet is extremely collaborative, and if you feel so inclined, I will hand you the microphone. Questions at all? Anyone? You're so inquisitive of an audience. I know I've really kind of taken you for a ride here, but do you have a question? Do you have a question? Where's Mike? Hi, Mike. Someone has a question. I guess my mic is wireless too. I could just sit down here. Oh, feedback. Never mind.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I'm right here.
Hi.
Hi. So do you see the information that's being collected as being mostly about people or about things? I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, part of what I kind of wanted to illustrate and maybe, like kind of through the lines say is that like that the delineation between a person and a thing is something that I think will continuously be blurred as time goes on. So a lot of our, the things that we know of in the world that have any relevant information to share on the internet, they don't really exist in a vacuum. So they represent someone or many someones. So I don't know if I'm answering your question like properly, but I guess I would say it's like it's a bit of both. Like there is definitely a lot of data that represents data about a thing, but when it comes down to it, that thing is only happening because a person needs it to.
So my name is Vince. You brought up a good point called meaningful data. So I'm thinking about, you can collect data, that's fine, but what do you think of the future of empathy?
Of empathy.
Yeah, because you said all this internet is about being human.
Right.
One of your slide, right?
Yeah.
So my understanding of being human is how could we be more compassionate towards each other, bring values out of each other, really enhance the experience of being collaborate.
Absolutely.
I mean, what is the fun of having an internet and collaborate, but what is the meaning to enhance somebody's experience like you and me or this group of audience?
Yeah.
So what do you think of future of empathy?
I think that's a tremendously insightful question and something that I'm probably not prepared to give you a full answer right now on the spot. But the things that come to mind is just the fact that we have an unprecedented number of opportunities available to us in terms of how we can communicate with people. I mean, when it comes down to it, we're just talking about like bits going across the wire, but we have all sorts of new kind of community type efforts coming along. So I guess the first thing I think of is like Slack, for example. I recently built a Slack group, and the thing that I've been finding that's particularly interesting is like under the hood, Slack is just like a set of APIs, and is really powerful as a tool to kind of build like kind of a community base that is tailored around the needs, for your particular group. So like the group that I created is called Queer Global. The hope is to make it a global group of people who identify as queer in some way that's significant to them and give them a space to kind of, communicate and support each other. And I found that to be something that's been extremely meaningful to me in even a very short amount of time. So I know that's kind of a disjointed answer, but that's kind of the first thing that I could think of, and I'd love to chat with you more about it. Anyone else have any questions at all? I'm like way under time, so like don't feel like you're gonna push the talk duration out or anything. Anyone up there? You have a question? Do you want to just shout it out and I'll repeat it? So how do I feel about my online identity? Like in the context of like living independent of me? I think that it's fascinating. It's one of the things that I'm most excited about, the concept that I could cease to be aware of my existence, and that there's this possibility that the rest of the world could be completely unaware of my demise. And I feel that like if I have my choice of methods of immortality, that probably wouldn't be my first choice. I'd love to be aware of the fact that I continue to exist. But something that does excite me is if we're not able to get to that point before I do reach the natural end of my life, I would love to know that kind of the sum of what content I had left on the internet is still kind of out there being extrapolated and turned into new content that is essentially, the essence of who I am or who I was. You there. Right behind you, Mike. And that guy pointing to himself, yes.
Just related to what you were saying earlier. Do you think that your online identity is like a accurate representation of yourself, or do you feel like there's like sort of differences, similarities? I mean, generally among all people.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, as a general question or one specifically to me? Both. Okay. Well, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that, on a general sense, we all have at least somewhat compartmentalized ideas of who we are. And so a lot of us are familiar with the concept of like public, private, and personal self. And so I think those like layers of exterior apply to most people. In the context of the internet, on a general sense, I think it's very fair to say that like who someone represents themselves as on the internet may not be the truest depiction of who they are in the physical world. But I personally feel that that's part of the freedom and empowerment that comes from better understanding and utilizing the internet as an aspect of our identity, because it does allow us to explore pieces of who we are without some of the same ramifications that exist in the physical world. And then to myself personally, I can say that absolutely, like, my internet persona or identity is completely different from who I am in person. I mean, I'm a completely different person from who I am on stage even, so very much the case. Did that answer your question? Yeah, I'd love, if you would like to elaborate, I'm happy to.
Like, would you say like a part of this is like anonymity, like being like on 4chan or something, like you can just like flame away, and like in real life you can't really do that? Is that part of what you're saying?
I think that that's definitely a part of it. I mean, people who have a desire to disrupt the lives of others are definitely going to find ways to do that minimize their personal risk. But I don't think that that's the bulk of what the internet has to offer. I think that if you look at the kind of, I hate to use the word, but if you look to the zeitgeist of the internet, by and large, people are using that anonymity as a way to empower themselves. So I personally look at that as kind of a double-edged sword that, at least right now, has enough benefit to outweigh the kind of the negatives that do end up taking place. There's a question over there. Thank you, Mike, with your trusty mic.
So my question to you is, how you define poor?
How do I define
Poor.
poor? Like, as in, like, in the term of, like, poverty?
Anything. What's your definition of, what is the first thing comes to your mind when somebody asks you poor?
When someone says that they're poor,
Yeah.
I guess the first thing that comes to my mind is that they're perhaps lacking in something that is of value to them. So in the context of our quite capitalist society, first thing that would come to mind is money. But on a more philosophical sense, I guess I would start thinking about being poor in spirit, because it's very easy to be monetarily broke, but still at least somewhat happy with the fact that you're alive and experiencing existence. Is that at all an answer to your question?
Yeah, no, but my question is why everybody thinks that poor has to be completely related to financial.
Yeah.
I would say I only have 600 followers.
Right.
So that means I'm poorer than Britney Spears because she has 1 million followers. So what is the definition of really poor? Why everybody thinks poor is just financially?
Right.
How are we going to change? Because I feel this meaningful data, which we're collecting, if we can collectively make the change to a superior of, like you say, superhero or superhuman,
Yeah.
somebody has to do that, because I think that's the only way people will be authentically sharing
Right.
their online persona with their offline.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think at the very end there you brought up a really good point to that end, is that I think we can break free from a lot of that by finding ways to decouple the data or the content that we're producing from our ego. So I hope that helps. But I'd love to chat with you more about this in the hallway track, as it were. You had a question?
Yeah. I was curious about the paradigm of moving the internet forward in a way so that you're pushing it away and it gets out of your way, in contrast with what appears to be the exponential increase of hyper tracking,
Right, yeah.
and the anxiety of tracking. Not just,
Exactly.
I mean, there's the whole layer of who's tracking and who's seeing it, but
Right.
even outside of that, just managing multiple Twitter accounts and this tracker and that one and that one, and during
Absolutely.
a span of 16 hours of waking life a day, how do we get from exponential tracking to it getting out of the way of our lives? Because I see a bit of a contradiction there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is a really hard question to answer. I don't think anyone has one silver bullet just yet. But the first thing that comes to mind, again, is Amber Case and the work that she's doing around calm technology. And that's something that I find particularly appealing. And I feel that it's pretty parallel to what I envision. And it just kind of comes down to finding ways to determine the level of urgency of data in a way that is more appropriate to how you live your life as a human being, rather than as like an entity that exists on the internet. So I could go into all sorts of a tangent. We are getting a little bit tight on time at this point, but for me, I think of things like, just ambient alerting, and I wish I could think of a project name that I thought was particularly interesting, but it's a process of taking event streams of information and encoding them into like subtle variations in the tempo of a background song that's playing, or a slight shift in the hue of lighting around you to indicate a certain thing. And I think that there's a lot to be explored there. I hope that's anywhere near hitting kind of what you're talking about. Cool, I think we might have time for one more question.
Hi, I'm Shenling from Illumio. Thank you for your presentation. It's very inspiring.
Thank you.
Actually, I have one question because you mentioned we may have a lot of human data more and more in the future. And then I was wondering, is that means the privacy will be a big problem? Is that means internet security or network security will be a blocker to the internet going forward things? Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I didn't even try to touch on privacy in this talk because it is such a huge topic that like I could give 2 or 3 talks just on how we approach privacy going forward. But from my perspective, the thing that I am trying my best to position the industry to kind of accept is the idea of kind of like bring your own data. So kind of like this concept of federating access or distribution of data. So to give an example, are you familiar with like Amazon Web Services and how you can, like kind of timeshare some boxes in Amazon's cloud? When privacy becomes a concern, I can imagine at least a very similar model, but with the exception that the hardware holding my data is actually owned by me. And I can't really tell you how that would actually manifest in terms of the logistics of it. But I think that bring your own data is a particularly powerful concept that has a lot of potential to alleviate some of the privacy concerns, but essentially, on a very high level, allow you to be the one in control of, what nodes have access to what type of data that you have stored about your personhood. So I don't know where any of the stage managers or organizers are, so I don't know exactly how much time I have. It looks like I'm 1 minute over, so I'd like to just end this with, a pitiful plea to follow me on Twitter. I'll link my slides. I'd love to chat with anyone who found anything that I had to say interesting. And that's all I have to say, so thank you very much.